You know that strange moment when reality suddenly crashes into a fantasy story? That's exactly what happens here. After years of will they or won't they, Mao finally walked into Jinshi's bedroom. The scene was perfect. Scented candles, rose petals, and expensive alcohol. Our Jinshi was so nervous he could barely breathe. Mao, on the other hand, looks at him completely calm and says she's fully prepared for what's about to happen. Then she opens her bag. In an instant, the romance doesn't just fade, it shatters along with everything we imagined this scene would be. She comes with contraceptives and a plan for any accidents that might happen, because unfortunately, this is their reality. The court is in a state of unrest. Many people look at Empress Gyokuyo's young son and his red hair and think he shouldn't be the next emperor. They're starting to search for someone else to take the throne. Some are even turning their attention to consort Lihua's young prince. But who do you think is at the very top of their list? The emperor's younger brother, Jinshi. After an entire year away in the western capital, our favorite couple is finally back home. But if you think things are going to get easier for them, you're wrong. The political war is heating up, and Jinshi is right in the middle of it. We know Maomao has finally decided to accept Jinshi's feelings, but in this volume, Lady Adwo summons her to her palace for a private conversation. She doesn't come alone though. Her bodyguard, Chui, comes with her, smiling as always, despite the injury she suffered before. They talk briefly about what happened in the West, and then we learn that Chui is actually serving Adwo, not Jinshi. Her true task has always been to simply make the Moon Prince happy. Adwo hesitates because sometimes, even when you are sure about something, you aren't sure if it's right to say it out loud. Meanwhile, Chui leans back in her chair. Adwo begins and confirms that Jinshi is indeed her son by birth. However, Maomao doesn't appear surprised. Then she also tells her that the real imperial younger brother and her son were switched. Maomao already knows that as well. In fact, she figured it out back in season 1. Adwo says she occasionally hears rumors about them, and now she thinks she understands why their relationship isn't getting anywhere. It's because Maomao is doing everything in her power to pretend it doesn't exist. She asks why she's telling her all this, and she replies that according to rumors, things between her and Jinshi developed in the western capital. Hearing that, she immediately scowls at Chui. She's definitely not the type who likes her love life becoming public gossip, but unfortunately, her best friend has a job to do. And the thing is, Adwo knows her pain. More than that, she sees herself in her. She begins by saying how difficult Jinshi can be. Then she adds that he's also a young man who will soon summon her to his palace. Surprisingly, Chui delivers that very summon, along with several other letters. She looks at Chui, who makes a point of whistling innocently. Adwo asks if Maomao knows what that means, because she herself doesn't know for sure if Jinshi has called her to his palace because he wishes to establish relations between them as a man and a woman. Maybe he just wants to talk about the weather or ask for her advice. But in general, when a nobleman summons a woman to his personal residence, it's as good as a command to spend the night with him. Maomao simply replies that she comes from the pleasure district. But Jinshi, her son, isn't just another trick. He has the most noble blood running in his veins. Adwa clearly doesn't understand what she means. So after a pause, she clarifies that she's more familiar than most with how to avoid pregnancy. She intends to make sure there's nothing to regret afterward. Adwo still asks, if something were to come of it, would you consider raising the child in secret? And she says, might it not be that tens or hundreds of lives could easily be stolen away for that child's sake, fearing that a political war could erupt? And if so, wouldn't it be much easier for me alone to pierce my belly with a long needle? Adwo questions if that is something they do in the pleasure district, while Maomao wonders whether it would be better to drink quicksilver, be punched in the stomach, or dunk herself into freezing water. Literally, all of these ideas are terrifying, but it's because she understands the situation. Maomao is not a woman who will fall head over heels for Jinshi just because of his good looks. She may talk about how stunning he is, but she knows the resolve required if she truly accepts his feelings. And that's one of the reasons people say she fell harder for him, because our girl has accepted her feelings and is determined not to go back. Adwo tells her that she will never be able to leave this country again. Maomao gives the reason that most people in this country can't leave it. In fact, most can't even leave the land where they live. Nonetheless, Ardvo looks off into the distance. It's probably difficult for her because she has lived through something similar. She once wanted to leave this land and explore the great wide world, but she never got the chance. And it's not being naive, because when Maomao begins talking about foreign lands, she grows noticeably more passionate. She can't help but remember that she once stood in the same position. The difference is that the emperor told her to become his concubine without ever considering her feelings, and she never said anything in return. Meanwhile, our Jinshi is doing everything in his power not to place the woman he loves in such a hard position. As a mother, perhaps she should encourage her son's blossoming love, yet her conscience compels her to say, "At this moment, it's still possible for you to escape. I would help you." Mao Mao looks dubious, so she tells her she still has some modest privilege left and could manage something. However, it isn't Mao Mao who responds, it's Chui. She says that if Mao Mao were to run away, she would never be able to fulfill her duty to make the Moon Prince happy, because if he loses his cat, the poor boy will break. Ardvo laughs. Come now, if a man can be despondent over losing one single woman, well, that's all the more man he is. Surely a talented servant could find others to fill the gap. Chui crosses her arms and tilts her head, saying, "Now you're talking silly talk." But the truth is, even during the banquet in the western capital, Ardvo didn't help him find a wife, because she felt the women at those palace gatherings were only seeking power. At first, she was confused by Jinshi's behavior, but she feels much better now that she knows he actually loves Mao Mao and that she is smart and confident enough not to let any vixen take advantage of him. Mao Mao looks at her, saying she couldn't care less about Miss Chui's mission. She is ready to face whatever because she has accepted him wholeheartedly. Still, Ado asks if she's sure and won't regret it. She replies that she means to negotiate as best as she can to ensure she doesn't. Then Chui joins in, asking whether she plans to have a large greenhouse built on the palace grounds. Mao Mao seems pleased by the idea. The fact that the two of them can banter even in a moment like this shows how well they get along. Chui also wants an orchard so she can eat as many fresh lychees as she wants. Mao Mao say that even though they could grow them in the greenhouse, she warns her to be careful as eating too many can make a person dizzy. She jokingly asks if she could eat 100, but Mao Mao advises her to stick to 10. It's a silly conversation, but somehow Ardo finds herself relaxing. She always thought Mao Mao was a young woman who simply lived however she pleased. Now she realizes she owes her an apology for that misjudgment. She is far more adaptable than she realized. When faced with a confined place, she doesn't seek to escape or destroy it. She reshapes herself and extracts what she can from the situation. It's a way of living that never occurred to the 14-year-old Ardvo. She wishes she could have told the emperor that she just wanted to be his friend instead of asking to be the mother of the nation. Feeling she is now a burden he refuses to let go. She fears her son may be repeating that mistake by trying to control Mao Mao. But Mao Mao is far more flexible, strong, and stubborn. That brings us to the end of the chapter, where Mao Mao receives pearls and coral for her medicine, a gift from her future mother-in-law, who silently hopes that Jinshi will not walk the same path as the emperor. Moving on to Jinshi's residence, Suiren has already set the mood. While eating, the incense slowly works its way into his nose. He asks if it's a bit strong, but she simply excuses it by saying he spent a long time in the West where incense had to be conserved. He also notices that there is more food than usual, including many things that boost stamina. He comments that the meal seems heavy, but she brushes it off with the same excuse that he's just not used to it anymore. This all strikes him as very strange. Then he looks over at the guard. Surprisingly, Basen isn't on duty, as something had happened between him and his older sister. Still, Jinshi has a feeling the plot he should really be worried about was Suiren's. "What's with the flower petals floating in my bath?" he asks. They'd been a nuisance, sticking to his skin. Suiren replies, "Wasn't the temperature just perfect? And I put in some herbs and minerals that promote good blood flow and metabolism." At this point, even he starts connecting the dots. After all, he's made similar preparations for the emperor in the past. If she is doing all this, it means someone is coming. And he did send Mao Mao a letter a few days ago. Suiren, could it be? he begins, but she cuts him off. Maomao is coming tonight. You wrote to her several times, didn't you? It's true, he sent her letters, but they were mostly reports about his daily life. He hadn't given any explicit instructions for her to visit his residence. He had only mentioned that he wished to see her and speak with her whenever she had a moment. Hold on a second, it's just Maomao, right? He asked. It has been more than 2 weeks since they returned, and this will be the first time she visits Jinshi's home. But he still cannot understand the setup. He looks toward his bedroom. Incense is burning, the bedclothes have been changed, rose petals are scattered across the sheets, and beeswax candles cast a sweet aroma and flickering light. As realization hits him, he quickly puts out the incense and candles, then throws open the window to air out the room. He tosses the petals into the trash and puts away the vases. Suiren gasps dramatically. Oh goodness, he replies. Don't oh goodness me, what are you doing to my room? Maomao once attempted to entertain him at the Verdigree's house, and what's happening now reminds him far too much of that day. Well, ambiance is so important. You and she share the same feelings now, young master, Suiren says. In mounting panic, he tries to act nonchalant, but the corner of his mouth twitches. Like any grandmother, she begins telling him about how worried she's been, and how many young men his age already have children. He hadn't hidden what happened with Maomao from her, but he hadn't spelled it out either. There were so many people on the boat that they hadn't had any time alone, and he was sure no one had noticed anything. I may be an old lady, but my woman's intuition is still as sharp as ever, she says with a laugh. Jinshi finds himself truly afraid. He scratches his head awkwardly. All right, but this is Maomao we're talking about. Yes, and Maomao is more than 20 years old. She may be an innocent maiden, but she has knowledge. When a gentleman sends her a letter and asks her to come to his room, I'm sure she understands what that means. Suiren smiles. But this room, he protests. She says she thought it best to be open about it. He embarrassingly said, that's too open. The atmosphere should be more subtle, more thoughtful. Then he stops himself because that was not the point. He sits on the edge of the bed and runs a hand through his hair. He was beginning to feel something more than just embarrassment. Trying to distract himself, he takes a swig from the cup beside his bed, but he spits it out immediately because it's actually alcohol. He asks Suiren what she put in it, and she said she only put in the slightest bit, and he still noticed. Of course I noticed, and Maomao's going to sniff it out the minute she gets close. So Suiren reluctantly takes it away. He takes a deep breath, trying to calm his pounding heart. What is a man over 20 doing, feeling this shaken? After all, more than one woman had snuck into his bedchamber before. He'd been pressed against them, moist red lips coming toward him. He'd been nauseated by the overpowering smell of incense. He remembered the guards dragging those women away by the hair as they screeched. He thought he knew womankind through and through, but he had been, as they say, a frog in a well. A frog, he mumbles. It was an unpleasant word to remember, and he unconsciously glanced down, then realized he'd been poisoned by Maomao. He was sure that wasn't an ordinary word for that part of the anatomy. Calm down, he repeats to himself like a sutra. He was still thinking himself in circles when his visitor arrived. He hears her voice, tired and sluggish. He straightens his collar and heads for the living room, acting as if nothing is amiss. Maomao looks half asleep as usual and is holding a large cloth sack. He asks if she would like a drink. Her eyes shine as alcohol enters the conversation. The way she began to drool reveals exactly how much she wanted a drink. Still, it wouldn't do for her to completely forget Jinshi was there, so he pointedly put some snacks in front of her, saying, alcohol alone is bad for the body. They talk about work while they drink. He asks if she's eaten dinner. She says she skipped it, as it would have been too much trouble. He offers her his leftovers, but she looks conflicted. It was unusual. She of all people never had to be asked twice. Is there some reason you wouldn't eat it? He asks. She looks at the ground, saying she made preparations of her own. He slowly sets down his cup, noticing how her skin glows more than usual. She has used a touch of whitening powder and scented oil. Her hair is slightly damp. She must have bathed before she came. While he is still taking it all in, she empties her glass and asks to rinse her mouth. After that, she says they should go inside. He follows her lead. To him, it feels like he's dreaming, but he reminds himself not to expect too much. Is it just me, or are you out of sorts tonight? She asks. He stutters, quickly denying it. Even Maomao, who is usually so calm and collected, almost looks self-conscious. He wants to be sure, so he asks her if she knows what it means to enter his bedroom at this moment. It's not about caring for any illness or treating any injury. She says she knows, and that's why she came prepared. He is desperate to look calm, and in an effort to seem composed, he turns away. By now, Suiren is nowhere to be found, and Basin isn't there either. He presses his hand to his chest, trying to steady his heartbeat. It's pounding so loudly, he's sure she can hear it. They head into the bedchamber. The room has been aired out and looks perfectly normal. He can't wait for his heart to slow down anymore. His cheeks are still flushed, but it's far too late to worry about that. He gently picks her up and notices she has gained a little weight since the last time he held her. Still, she is light and her hair smells of camellia oil. Are you sure about this? He asks. I told you I came prepared, didn't I? She replies, averting her eyes as if begging him not to make her say it again. He finds it slightly irritating, but it's very Maomao-like. Realizing she's nervous too gives him a small sense of relief. What kind of preparations did you make? He asks, and that's when things begin to go downhill. She tells him she skipped breakfast and dinner. He cluelessly asks if she was just busy experimenting. She also says that she stopped drinking water half a day ago, admitting that she shouldn't have had the alcohol earlier, but it was too delicious to resist. He can't begin to understand the purpose of such measures. She says ideally she should have avoided food for 3 days, and apologizes that she couldn't do better because she had work today and needed the energy. He is completely lost. So she explains that it's what they do at the Verdigrees house when a customer buys someone's first time. It's better to starve than to taste an enraged client's fist. Jinshi scowls. I'm not sure why is the word I would have chosen, but no matter the context, he didn't want Maomao to torment herself that way. I'm not sure I'll be very skilled. I'll shame myself if I fail, she says, with her eyes serious. He knows that she has the soul of a craftsperson, bent on doing her very best at anything she attempts, no matter what it is. He let out a breath. The point is, she isn't going to try to finagle a way out like she had last time. She was being proactive, which made him very happy. Also, may I have some boiled water? She requested, and he teases that she is finally feeling thirsty, but that wasn't the case. She opens the large cloth sack she brought with her. Inside are packets of medicine. He recognizes the plants, one she warned him about in the rear palace. She tells him not to worry, as they aren't for him, they are for her. Once again, her eyes were completely serious as she said, I have tools that can do physical damage as well, but they aren't very effective, and I know you don't appreciate that sort of thing, so I thought it might be best not to use them. Then she shows him ox intestines or whatnot, until he finally gets that all those were to prevent pregnancy, and that this is what she meant by preparation. He blanches and a chill runs through him. Having accepted your feelings, I also accept what comes with them. But I will not become Empress Kyokuyo's enemy, she says. Jinshi bites his lip hard. He'd been thoughtless. Had he forgotten who and what he was? To Maomao, he might be Jinshi, but to everyone else, he is the Emperor's younger brother, Kazuegetsu, the Moon Prince, and the most suitable person for the throne. In such circumstances, for him to conceive a child with a young woman to whom he was not even married was not really a good idea. And imagine what people would do if they found out the young woman was Maomao, Kan Lakan's own daughter. He is currently neutral, but if this were to happen, people would think a new faction is formed and then a lot of new political problems would arise. Maomao might not be one for politics, but she had a keen nose for danger.
We should really get out of here.
Jinshi just got a reality check, the one she was already living in. She continues, I've also charted the course of the month, and I think this should be a relatively safe night. However, please don't concern yourself. Even if there should be an accident, I know how to deal with it. It is almost certainly true. If a child is conceived, she would take care of the matter. She will certainly not raise it in secret. It may sound cruel, but she is right. Any child could become the spark that ignites a conflagration. This will be cruelty in the pursuit pursuit of peace, but the damage will be kept to an absolute minimum. After stepping his foot in reality, Jinshi hugs her tight, not out of the animal lust that has been building in him until moments ago. He feels such guilt and pain that he thinks he will shatter his own teeth from clenching his jaw. I'm sorry to make you be the careful one, he says, resting his chin on her shoulder. She gave him a soothing pat on the back, telling him that it's all right. He feels it is something close to a miracle that he has met a woman like her. That is why he doesn't want to let her go. He has gone so far as to press a brand into his own side, all to keep her. Sorry, he says again, and then, although he hates to do it, he lets her go. He pushes down his desire to simply hold on to her forever and sprawls back onto the bed. She calls his name, but he covers his face with his hands, asking her to go home for today and to take some dinner with her, since she must be hungry. I understand, sir, she replies simply. She gathers her things and prepares to leave. As she excuses herself, she murmurs something, but he's too lost in his own thoughts to hear it. He tells himself it's all right, that this is enough for now, but he knows he cannot remain the Emperor's brother forever. He must prove that he poses no threat to Empress Gyokuyo or consort Lihua. A brand on his flank is not enough. He needs to do something clearer, more public. Basically, he must cast aside his position. That seems to be the only way. What do I do? Jinshi wonders. Thinking so hard, he half expects his hair to start falling out. As for what Maomao said before leaving, she had prepared for the possibility that nothing would happen. She knew Jinshi had too much on his mind. I've reread this scene 100 times, and it's still such a deep moment. Some people say the final line is mistranslated, but I can't seem to get over the hug and those emotions to think further. Either way, the author makes one thing clear. Their relationship isn't easy. It's not just a happily ever after we've been hoping for since volume 1. In the end, when Maomao leaves, she is actually somewhat relieved. Despite all her knowledge, she has no experience. When she reached home and saw the stamina food Suiren cooked, she gives a wry smile and eats her dinner in her own bed. They began as 17 or 18-year-olds, and now they are developing so much, both as individuals and as a couple. I've truly come to love them, flaws and all. They're still finding their way, and I'm just glad to be a part of this journey with them. This scene in particular shows that their development isn't about a fairy tale ending. It's about two people learning to respect the weight of each other's lives. And I'm sure that the more volumes I'll read, the more they will become my absolute favorites. But for now, that's all for this video. Thank you for listening to me. Take care of yourself and goodbye.
Maybe we could be okay, maybe you could be the change.